From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
A new report aims to combat the opioid crisis across the country, but one Arizona woman voices her concerns about restricted access to prescribed drugs that improve her everyday life.
GOP senators released a new version of their health care bill today, how it resonated with Arizona lawmakers and the medical community.
And Cronkite News spoke one-on-one with Paul Penzone. We discuss what immigration issues the new Maricopa County Sheriff is facing.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Tyler Paley.
And I'm Annika Walters. Thank you for joining us. A new report out today looks at the ways to balance the benefits and risks of opioid use. The report says opioids are necessary and they should not be cut off from people who need them. Cronkite News reporter Tyler Fingert spoke with a Valley woman who has used opioids to manage her pain. Tyler?
Annika, it's a lengthy, nearly 400-page report. In a time when opioids are under fire across the country for the abuse that happens, there's another side that often gets forgotten: the people who need them to manage pain and get them legally. This is where Lori Nichols spends most of her day due to nerve damage near her spine.
The way it feels, it's like someone's got a claw that is made out of stainless steel, and the points are sharp, and it's gripped around your spine.
Because of that chronic pain, she was prescribed opioids for relief.
It's helped me lead a more normal life because the less you are restricted by the severity of the pain, the better you can function.
Her story is similar to others across the country who use the powerful drugs to manage pain. A new report out today from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine give recommendations to the FDA, state, and local governments on actions they should take, like limiting supply, influencing prescribing practices, and more FDA monitoring.
The committee sought balance in their recommendations concerning opioids. Opioids have an undisputed role in the management of pain of particular types.
The report does stress there are other options besides opioids. Lori uses alternatives like ketamine injections and seeing a chiropractor in combination with painkillers. But losing the pills would be a big concern because it's one of the things in her arsenal that has provided her relief.
There are other means, but if you take away opioids, it's like taking away a leg of a three-legged stool.
The report says it will take years of coordinated effort to contain the current opioid epidemic and will require action by political and public health leadership to reduce new cases of prescription opioid use disorder. Tyler Fingert, Cronkite News.
Making this also the largest opioid-related fraud takedown in American history.
A major move on healthcare fraud announced today. Attorney General Jeff Sessions says upward of 400 people nationwide are being charged in healthcare fraud schemes resulting in $1.3 billion in quote-unquote false billings. Those charged include doctors and other healthcare providers across the country, including from Arizona. Cronkite News is dedicated to covering the opioid crisis in Arizona and nationwide. Our documentary, Hooked RX: From Prescription to Addiction, highlights the problems of painkillers here in our state. You can watch the documentary and find resources for getting help online at hookedrx.org.
Senator John McCain spoke on the Senate floor yesterday, expressing frustration with the Senate's bipartisan divide on several issues. McCain gave a call to action, asking his colleagues to, quote, accomplish something.
This is disgraceful. If we're going to stay here, let's get the work done. Let's come in early, stay late, negotiate a health care deal.
And it looks like the GOP is trying to accomplish something. Today, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has released a revamped Republican health care bill. The bill aims to repeal much of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. The revised legislation adds money for states to reduce premiums and out-of-pocket costs. It also includes $45 billion to help states combat drug abuse. But the bill still cuts Medicaid, the health care program for the poor. Still, not all Republicans are on board. It's unclear whether the measure will survive a showdown vote next week. Business and health leaders, state legislators, and veterans voiced their concerns today about the new American Health Care Act. Blakely McHugh found out what effect the Senate bill will have on Arizonans.
Tonight, uncertainty for Medicaid patients.
We are here today because all of that is at risk.
2 state Republican lawmakers and several healthcare professionals gathered today at the Phoenix Children's Hospital to speak out against the proposed Senate Republican healthcare bill. The Better Care Reconciliation Act is the Senate's version meant to repeal the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. It could leave hundreds of thousands of people without Medicaid, according to the Congressional Budget Office.
PCH is proud to be hosting this event with our colleagues because we believe Arizonans should understand the impact of the Better Care Reconciliation Act and the subsequent proposals that are being discussed by our members of Congress.
According to the Modern Medicaid Alliance, the proposed bill threatens to take away $800 billion in Medicaid funding. Munzer is concerned approximately 60% of patients at Phoenix Children's Hospital would lose their Medicaid coverage.
So without this coverage, they'd have to find alternative coverage, they'd have to pay cash, we'd have to find alternative programs in order to support them, which are not there today.
Carter worries that this would not only take away health care coverage for many, but it would also increase hospital premiums and taxpayer bills.
When you have an uncompensated care population show up in the emergency room, somebody has to pay for that cost.
And Carter hopes that senators in her party will focus efforts on fixing the existing problems with the Affordable Care Act rather than use taxpayer dollars to pass a new bill. In Phoenix, Blakely McHugh, Cronkite News.
A new Congressional Budget Office score is expected on Monday or Tuesday.
According to the Department of Homeland Security, more than 600,000 people stayed in the U.S. after their visas expired in 2016. That number got the attention of U.S. senators who pressed Department of Homeland Security officials at a Senate committee hearing this week. Cronkite News reporter Noelle Lilly was at this hearing and brings us the story.
Arizona Senator Jeff Flake was among the lawmakers who expressed concerns about holes in data on visa overstays and frustration at the slow pace to install biometric technology that could close those holes. These frustrations were shared by Department of Homeland Security officials who testified.
I recognize your frustration with our pace of this. I also recognize that Congress has made up to $1 billion available over the next decade to support funding and implementing this program. As I said publicly before, we're out of time and we're out of excuses.
Visa overstays are when a person enters the U.S. legally through some sort of student or work visa, but does not leave the country once that visa has expired.
Whatever the reason, we have to take steps to stem the tide of visa overstays and restore some order out of chaos when it comes to this flaw in our immigration system.
But the Department of Homeland Security's data on visa overstays only accounts for those who have crossed into the country through the air or sea, not at a land crossing.
Well, we need an effective biometric exit program in place, no matter how people come and go, whether by air, sea, or land ports of entry.
The department has been working for years to install biometric technology, which identifies travelers through things like face recognition or fingerprints. While it could be used to track those traveling to and from the country, right now it's mostly used on those coming in and rarely to check those leaving.
I think our exit system, biometric exit system, like I said, we have better information on those coming in, but we don't have a good way to track those going out, and we're getting better, but we still have a long way to go.
Officials with the Department of Homeland Security say they expect to continue working alongside law enforcement and airlines to find ways to better execute this plan and this program. Live in Washington, Noelle Lilly, Cronkite News.
Here in Maricopa County, Sheriff Paul Penzone was recently questioned by Puente at the Unidos U.S. conference here in Phoenix for continuing to allow Immigration and Customs Enforcement access to undocumented immigrant detainees before they are released. Patricio Espinosa sat down with Sheriff Penzone to talk to him about that and the latest in that process.
With only about 7 months in office, Sheriff Penzone hit the ground running. He announced the closing of Tent City, a decision many welcome. However, the presence of ICE agents in the Maricopa County Jail to interview and possibly deport detainees based on their immigration status continues to be controversial, particularly among the Latino community. We sat down with the sheriff and asked him whether or not he plans to change this.
When we speak of the community, we're speaking about one particular section of a broad swath of the community. My concern and my position in this is very clear. If there's a person that another agency has an interest in, I'm not going to interfere with that process. I'm also not going to take a position where it's arbitrary. And like, look at this, let's just say that someone was in there for a very serious violent crime versus a lesser, maybe a misdemeanor. It's not my position to be arbitrary in deciding who they should or should not have access to. They have responsibility and authority. I am giving them the opportunity to act on their authority and determine how they want to go forward with that.
And while the sheriff has no plans at this time to stop MCSO's cooperation with ICE, Pinzon says he has reached out to the U.S. Attorney General's office to, quote, bring law enforcement together and discuss, he says, a lawful and constitutional way to handle this matter. We'll bring you more from his interview in the upcoming days. In the Broadcast Center, Patricio Espinosa, Cronkite News.
As Arizona continues to grow, so does the housing industry.
That's right. Coming up on Cronkite News, how Valley Construction is racing to keep up with rapid expansion.
And how these parents and children are playing outside, but they're actually protesting. What message they're trying to send to legislators.
Heaven knows you're a dreamer. Don't hide it from anyone. Don't hide it from anyone. Hey, would you believe me if I said we are here for a reason now? This is our life. This is what counts. This is for us. I will go anywhere for you.
Các nhà lãnh đạo Việt Nam mà nói rằng là chúng tôi sẵn sàng hy sinh đến cái người dân Việt Nam cuối cùng. Thực sự mà nói thì người dân không biết được, miền Bắc không có thể ý thức một cách đầy đủ rằng đằng sau những cái tuyên bố mà cao cả đấy là sự hy sinh của chính họ.
The Arizona Republic reports that Metro Phoenix needs to build more apartments to keep up with its current growth rate. The Arizona Multi-Housing Association estimates that the valley needs 150,000 more new apartments by 2030. The housing crisis slowed construction from 2008 to 2014, but it's slowly picking back up. Cronkite News published an in-depth analysis of expansion in Metro Phoenix called Development in the Desert. You can learn about issues like urbanization, mining, commuting, and more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Governor Doug Ducey is in Rhode Island today for the National Governors Association's summer meeting. Ducey joins governors from around the country to discuss issues affecting their states. Vice President Mike Pence will address the group of governors to highlight the relationship between states and the federal government. Other leaders who have attended so far today include Secretary John Kelly and Mexican Ambassador Geronimo Gutierrez.
This might not be your typical Air Force. The Mom's Clean Air Force has been putting together a play-in for the past 4 years on Capitol Hill to highlight the importance of clean air. But this year's play-in comes just weeks after the U.S. said it would pull out of the Paris Climate Accord. Cronkite News reporter Alex Valdez has the story from Washington.
Mesa residents Kathy Moore Almeida and her daughter Anna Rose traveled to Washington, D.C. to protest against President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord.
Clean air is imperative. We need to clean up our atmosphere. It's affecting human health. I'm thinking about my daughter's grandkids and their grandkids, and it's something that we need to address, or it's not going to end well for us.
The president said the Paris Agreement, which called for reductions in emissions, would cost U.S. jobs, and that it was too costly for too little environmental gain. But the Mesa mom and daughter said the reasoning overlooks the importance of clean air for people like Anna Rose, who have asthma.
A lot of kids at my school can't breathe on dirty air days, so I'm one of them. And we all love doing sports, so one of the things I always tell them is, hey, we want to be athletic and we want to do things, so what are you going to help us do?
They hope to bring their story directly to lawmakers to let them know about the health issues that many kids like Anna Rose face in day-to-day life. Health issues, they say, are due to dirty air.
Nothing more important to any parent, any good parent, than their kids and their well-being and their safety and their future and their happiness and their health. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't have any choice. This is a do or die matter.
14-year-old Anna Rose echoes her mom's words and hopes for the future.
I want clean air for future generations and my generation, and I don't want kids to be sick anymore.
If lawmakers don't listen, Moore Almeida said voters will speak at the ballot box.
Yeah, they need to be listening to the will of the people, or we're going to vote them out. That's the bottom line. I've had it. A lot of my community members have had it.
In Washington, Alex Valdez, Cronkite News.
The Moore Almeidas have been to Washington for 2 play-ins already. They're also active at home, where Anna Rose has set up a tax-exempt nonprofit, the Kids Climate Action Network. The Native American Basketball Invitational was held in Arizona yesterday.
That's right. Coming up on Cronkite News, how Nabi and the Phoenix Mercury are encouraging young athletes to shoot for the stars.
Stay tuned to see what to expect these next few days.
I think I finally found my hallelujah. I've been waiting for this moment all my life now. All my dreams are coming true, yeah. I've been waiting for this moment. It's good to be alive right about now. Right about now.
Officially from 36, and he hooks it in. Arizona State wins. Keeping one deep, and it is caught. Jalen Strong. Do you believe it?
A wildfire is burning in southeastern Arizona, just miles west of the Chiricahua National Monument. The fire started Tuesday night, and its cause is still under investigation. Approximately 200 firefighters and a dozen aircraft were sent to the site today. The national park reopened the monument this afternoon, but firefighters are closely monitoring the Fife Fire's movement to assure staff and visitor safety. Park officials suggest short hikes and have warned visitors of possible short-notice evacuations. So far, the fire has burned 2,100 acres and is only 10% contained.
And in the last few days, we've seen some rain showers here in the valley, but could we expect more over the weekend?
Well, I think that's why Madison Connor is here. She's in the broadcast center with your 7-day forecast.
Well, Tyler, we are still waiting on some good monsoon rain out here, but we do have a chance for that to change tonight with some thunderstorms moving into the valley. As for right now, we are looking at 106, and that humidity is still at 35%, so that's what you're feeling when you step outside. Now, this temperature is typical for this time of year. As you can see, our average of 107. And then the cloud coverage we're experiencing right now is keeping us under this record of 114. Looking at temperatures across the state, we're looking pretty good. We have 74 in Flagstaff and 84 in Show Low. Looking a little closer to home, we have 107 out there in Goodyear, 106 in Chandler, and 104 in Mesa. Stepping into our 7-day forecast, you can see we do lose that cloud coverage on Friday, but don't worry, it doesn't stay away long. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we have a high chance of thunderstorms. I'm Madison Connor, Cronkite Weather.
Arizona is hosting the 15th annual Native American Basketball Invitational this week. NABI is the largest Native American basketball tournament in the country, and Cronkite News reporter Sarah Haddis tells us how the tournament influences the young athletes off the court as well.
121 Native American basketball teams from across the country, plus one from New Zealand, participated in NABI Night at the Phoenix Mercury game last night. Since the tournament's first year in 2003, the NABI organization says it served more than 1,500 youth and awarded over $200,000 in financial aid to students pursuing college. Tribes from 22 states are in Arizona for this year's event, and for chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association, Ernie Oñeda, this tournament is an opportunity for the Native American community to gather around a sport they love.
I think the Phoenix Mercury and NABI and the Arizona tribes, all these people coming from all over the country and are helping to create a better tomorrow for not just for our athletes, but for our communities. We are creating leadership, we're teaching leadership, and we're doing that through a little bit of basketball, maybe a whole bunch of basketball. We like the game.
One former NABI participant went on to play in the WNBA. Shoni Schimmel played 3 seasons in the league before taking this season off. This year's NABI championships will be held at Talking Stick Resort Arena on Saturday. In the broadcast center, Sarah Haddis, Cronkite News.
The Arizona Rattlers made the move to the Indoor Football League.
And although the team had a rocky start, it managed to make its way to the top and become the United Bowl champions.
Go Rattlers!
Coming up on Cronkite News, we give you a closer look at the team's championship celebration.
You're a dreamer, don't hide it from anyone, don't hide it from anyone. Hey, would you believe me if I said we are here for a reason now? This is our life, this is what counts, this is for us. I will go
For the first time since being crowned United Bowl champions, the Arizona Rattlers showed off the trophy to the Rattler Nation. The trophy marks the 6th championship in the organization's history, but it's first in the Indoor Football League. Cronkite News reporter Alexis Ramanjulu was at the presentation to see why the 6th time is just as sweet as the first.
The Rattlers moved to the Indoor Football League, departing their longtime home in the Arena Football League, got off to a rocky start. The team lost its first 2 games, but owner Ron Schertz never lost confidence, even as the team struggled to a 4-4 record at the season's midway point, and he sat in a meeting with team president Chris Presson and others.
I said, we're going to win the whole thing. And they looked at me like, you're 4-4, you were 0-2, you were 2-3, you're 4-4, you're pretty much at the bottom of the league at this point in time. How is that possible? I said, we're going to win the whole thing.
His team did just that, following a 9-game win streak with the franchise's first IFL championship, adding to the Rattlers' 5 titles in the Arena League. The 50-41 victory over the Sioux Falls Storm brought their season full circle. The young team lost its IFL debut to the Storm in February.
At the beginning of the year, we were a new team, and we hung with them pretty much the whole game, so we knew we were going to put up a fight this game. So pretty much we just wanted to come out and be dominant from the start, and we were able to do that.
I watched other teams throughout the season, you know, as they had adversity, they started bailing on some of their players, releasing them, bringing in new players, and, you know, I felt like we just kind of stayed the course as a coaching staff, and we felt like we had the guys. We just needed to keep coaching them and developing them, and they kept buying in, and we would get there.
16 of the 22 players on the Rattlers roster had not played indoor football professionally until this season. In Phoenix, Alexis Ramonjulu, Cronkite News.
Justin Shirk, who had 1.5 sacks and a tip ball, was named the most valuable player. But he said winning MVP is, quote, a team effort. I couldn't have done it without my team, end quote.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about a court challenge to a new law that makes it harder to get a citizen's initiative on the ballot. And we'll see how the Phoenix Zoo is working to help save endangered species.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, our series Inside Putin's Russia examines why many of the Russian president's opponents have turned up dead. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.